It's championship time on Philly Sports Spotlight, and we are previewing one of golf's most coveted events as the U.S. Open returns to Merion.
Phil, can you feel me? Philly Sports Spotlight. Now you finally got the chance to shine. Baby, highlight. Cause you in the spotlight. Philly Sports Spotlight. And if you ain't alive, then you not right. Spotlight. Yeah, you in the spotlight. Philly Sports Spotlight. Now you finally got the chance to shine. Baby, highlight. Cause you in the spotlight.
Took that trophy out of that box, and you looked at the names and the history of that trophy, and you know, for a little guy from Australia, you know, that started playing golf like a lot of people did with not much opportunities in life, to open that trophy and know that, you know, in 1981 it was going to put your name there and it would be there forever. I think that's when it really hit me.
That, by the way, was 1981 U.S. Open champ David Graham of Australia, if you will, lamenting on his 1981 Open win, the last time golf's national major was played at Merion Golf Club in Ardmore, Pennsylvania. Good evening, everyone. I'm Phil Andrews, and this is Philly Sports Spotlight, where this week the spotlight truly is on Philadelphia, the 113th U.S. Open returning to the area for just the 16th time in its storied history. And to help us navigate through the early portions of tonight's show, we've got a great guest tonight. Please welcome to the set of Philly Sports Spotlight. How you doing? This is longtime golf play-by-play man, Jim Kelly. A little bit cliche, but Jim, you've forgotten more about golf than most of us will ever know. We thank you very much for, especially this week when we have the U.S. Open in town. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure to be here. I've seen enough of your golf game, Phil, to know that what Chichi Rodriguez says is true. For all of you amateurs, the best wood in the bag is the pencil.
This is my scoring pencil. You are absolutely right. I got to ask you right off the bat, with your knowledge of golf and having covered a lot of these majors, why is this event considered the greatest of the four majors?
Couple of simple words. It's our national championship. If you're European, if you're Ernie Els, who won last year, if you're Sergio, right, you play the European Tour, it's the Open Championship, meaning what we call the British Open, all right? That's their national championship. Over here, the U.S. Open is our national championship. Seeing the clip that you played as you started the show here on Philly Sports Spotlight, it was great to see my friend David Graham from Australia. You heard the emotion in his voice cracking up back then. The irony is that footage was from 1981 when I'm doing live remotes from Merion on Channel 10, right? When I worked back at WCAU. I had done golf on the radio and had started my golf career at CBS. And then to have David win. To give you a little background about some Australian guys like David Graham, Bruce Crampton, Bruce Devlin, and even Greg Norman. Some of the emotion that you heard in David's voice back then. The Australian golfers, a lot were raised in tough families, right, by their fathers, right, who were real taskmasters. But the Australian young golfers were not allowed into the country clubs, right? They didn't have the proper clothing, they didn't have the credentials. And I've sat with David Graham and Bruce Devlin and Bruce Crampton over dinner and watch grown men cry, right, about their background. So for him to win the U.S. Open, it was the same thing when Adam Scott won at Augusta. Remember Greg Norman saying how proud he was?
Well, you know, you talked about your friend, because I know you've a lot of friends over the years, but there's so many champions that you've covered, and just in the U.S. Open alone, I gave you the task of giving me your top 5 U.S. Open winners over the years. And I'd like you just, if you would, just real quickly run down your top 5 and why.
Well, the first one was fun. Johnny Miller back in '73. He was paired with Miller Barber that day. A little trivia question for you. When he shot the 63 at Oakmont. I'm literally doing golf on the radio. 4 names, a stringer on radio, right? $25 a report. I did 4 identical reports. Jim Kelly, CBS Radio Sports. Phil Andrews, ABC Radio Sports. Ted Gleason, right? 4 identical reports on the phone. There were 3 ladies sitting on a little park bench by the payphone. They all applauded like this, and they said, "We don't know who you are, but you're good."
Yeah, I remember those days of getting paid $25 to do those reports for you, for AP and
yeah, stringers.
Okay.
Ken Venturi, who we just lost less than a month ago, of course. Remarkable. A 36-hole finale at Congressional on oxygen. The doctor told him not to play the next 18 holes, limped home, collapsed, literally collapsed on the 18th and said, "Can you believe it? I've won the U.S. Open."
Yeah, that is emotional. Okay, we move on to the number 3 on your list.
Tom Watson in '82, the shot heard around the world at Pebble Beach, the chip in from the deep rough out there on the 17th, and his longtime caddy and good friend, who we lost a few years ago, Bruce, was on the bag. So Watson in 82. Michael Campbell, the Kiwi, in 2005 at Pinehurst, where they go next year. I had the Prime Minister of New Zealand on the air with me at the end of that, okay? The time difference, Helen Clark. And I said, Madam Prime Minister, it's a pleasure to have you on. And she says, oh, Jim, you've been down here enough covering the America's Cup. Call me Helen.
Helen, there you go, first name basis.
McIlroy winning at Congressional, great young man. His father was in the audience that day, winning on Father's Day, right? Another great winner with a bright future.
And I get this funny feeling that must have been your favorite one, because you saved that one for last. Don't they say the best for last?
No, the favorite one hasn't happened yet.
Okay, it's coming.
Yeah.
Well, listen, as you know, since the last time the U.S. Open was here at Merion, a lot has changed. They've moved some of the championship tees back. They've shifted some of the fairways. And, Mother Nature always has a way of making courses very challenging. With that in mind, let's take a look at holes 1 through 6 on the East course of Merion.
This is one of the great opening tee shots in golf, with the teeing ground situated right beside the clubhouse patio. Expect to see long irons from the teeing ground, with a few players favoring fairway metals, which would leave a wedge into the green. A sycamore tree off to the right of the tee will likely prevent players from attempting to drive the green, which pitches from back to front. If played properly, this is a birdie opportunity. Players have a choice from the teeing ground: play the hole conservatively as a 3-shotter, or attack the hole with a driver or 3-wood. The fairway has been shifted to the player's right to create a more demanding tee shot. Out of bounds looms closely on the right, and the rough on the left is some of the deepest on the course. From the drive zone, players will need to decide whether to lay up short of the cross bunker about 35 yards in front of the green, or attempt to fly it with their second shots. The putting green is relatively flat. Eagles and birdies are real possibilities, but one mistake along the way could lead to a bogey or worse. Both the 256 and 219-yard teeing grounds will be used during the championship. Although it has the most receptive green of Merion's par 3s, this is a very difficult hole. The bunker at the front right of the green is one of the deepest on the course. The green pitches steeply from back left to front right. Players will not want to miss to the left under any circumstances, as keeping a recovery shot on the green from there will be very difficult. A new teeing ground has been added, which brings the fairway bunkers into play. This is the second par 5 on the course and the last one that players will encounter. The tee shot features one of the most difficult drive zones to hit because of the pronounced right-to-left slope. The second shot is awkward, as the players will not be able to see over the cross bunker. Most players will lay up with an iron to leave themselves with a lofted club for their third shot to a green that slopes from back left to front right and is fronted by a creek. This is perhaps Merion's finest driving hole. It doglegs from right to left, with a stream bordering the left fairway for the entire length of the hole. The fairway also slopes from right to left. Right-handed players will face a hook lie for their long iron approach shot, which can be bounced onto what is, without a doubt, the most severely sloped green on the course. Players must not leave their second shots right of the hole, or they will face exceptionally fast putts. Players who are able to par this hole will likely pick up close to a full stroke on most of the field. This second consecutive difficult par 4 features a semi-blind tee shot over a crest to a bowl-shaped fairway. Most players will be left with a slightly uphill, mid to long iron approach shot to a green that is pitched from the back left to the front. The player will also have to negotiate a false front, requiring an approach that either bounces up onto the green or flies to the middle of the green. Par is a very good score on this hole.
So as you can see, the course looks to be in great shape. Obviously, it rained the first part of the week. But, hey, when the week goes on, I'm sure that the course will dry up and things will get better. As we get set to take our first break, let's check in with this week's Future Fitness Trivia question, which is, what Pennsylvania golf course has hosted the most U.S. Open championships? As usual, that answer coming up later on the show. We'll be right back right after this.